Thank you for coming back. As you know, we had just interviewed Louise Godbold, who was in the courthouse today with a presser, but now our own Jesse Weber was also there all morning in the courthouse, in the courtroom, where Harvey Weinstein and his defense team and the prosecutors were all together along with Judge James Burke. Jesse, what happened? What fireworks occurred in that courtroom?
Yeah, Linda, it was a very interesting day, to say the least. There were a couple of, there was two moments that I thought really caught everybody's attention. One, there was a discussion about where is Harvey Weinstein going to be during the course of this trial. The state obviously wants to confide him to New York. When that happened, he actually visibly said no at the suggestion that he would only be in New York. It was then the idea that he would be confined also to Connecticut. He has a home out there, and he was going to stay there only on the weekends. What ended up happening was he said no once again, and he said that he could be allowed to be in Connecticut during the weekdays as well. It doesn't seem to be an issue. But the real fireworks occurred when the defense was accused by the state of making, quote, abominable comments to the media. The state actually requested a gag order, meaning that both sides would not be permitted to talk about the case to the media. And the prosecutor actually suggested, particularly, specifically, Donna Rutina, that she was making comments that were very degrading of the witnesses that are going to come forward by calling them actresses. In other words, suggesting that they might lie when they take the stand. Now, the judge was actually comical about this and said, Ms. Rutina, I managed it, and this is about you. What did you do? And she defended herself, and she said, I didn't do anything improper. I didn't quote any. One of the other suggestions was that the defense actually quoted material from sealed documents. She said, I did not do that. The media has their own access to material. I was merely answering questions, and therefore I did nothing wrong. The judge ultimately denied the gag order, but if this is just a appetizer of what we're going to see during the course of this trial, you can imagine some fireworks.
Well, it sounds like with Harvey being totally involved in his defense, Ms. Rutina being asked by the prosecution or the judge to get a gag order because she said, you're absolutely right. Jesse, one of the other things that came out in the pressers afterwards was that there was a sequestration order asked for by the defense because there may be charges in L.A. that an indictment may be coming out on. Tell us what happened there about that.
Linda, this was one of the more bizarre aspects of this case, what happened this morning. So the judge made a determination that he's not going to address or discuss any of the other cases that are pending or might be happening in other jurisdictions. Arthur Idalis stood up and said, while we're talking about this, I'd like to just talk about the idea of sequestering the jury. I don't want to have 3 or 4 weeks into this case and then all of a sudden the jury hears something about another case and we have a mistrial. I don't think any side wants that. It was at this point that the prosecution actually tried to intervene and said, I just want to step up. And before they even had an opportunity to speak, Linda, the judge said, you know what? Denied. And he denied the jury sequestration order. Thought that was very surprising without giving an explanation of that. So it was surprising that that happened. The jury will not be sequestered, which again, it seems a bit strange given the high-profile nature of this case. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This may be the most high-profile trial we've seen since O.J. Simpson. So the idea that the jury will not be sequestered, it's a thing that's a little bit different.
Well, does it sound like to you that the prosecution has had contact or the defense has had contact with the L.A. office, the DA's office there, the investigators, and expect that there's going to be an indictment? Is that what it sounds like to you? Because that's what it sure sounds like to me.
Look, I'd be surprised if Harvey Weinstein's attorneys didn't know the full story or most of the story. There's obviously things that we don't know at this point that are happening in other jurisdictions. What we do know is the New York case is coming first, and they want to handle that the first way. Now, we have seen this before, Linda. Wouldn't it not be that much of a surprise if, depending upon what ultimately happens here during the conclusion of this case, it'll dictate what will happen in another jurisdiction? Let's say, for example, that he's found not guilty across the board. How soon after would an indictment maybe happen in California, or maybe something in London, or something abroad? And that becomes another separate issue. Right now, they're focused on this New York case, and there are some serious charges. We can't forget that if he is convicted of the predatory sex sexual assault counts, that's life in prison. So right now, step one is this trial, which will last about 6 to 8 weeks. The first problem, of course, is jury selection. That's the major issue, and it's not going to be easy getting through that, I'll tell you that much.
Well, the jury is selected from where in New York? All New York County?
Right. So there's two ways that they're doing the jury selection. My understanding from what we heard in court today is there's two groups. There's jurors who actually came forward and want to be part of this trial and say they'll be impartial. There's a jury questionnaire that is going to be given tomorrow, but it's sorting through literally hundreds of jurors and trying to find 18 within the community that that might be impartial jurors. Again, you're looking for 18 jurors, 12 jurors, and then 6 alternates. But going through hundreds, or I've heard even thousands of jurors, is going to be difficult. It's going to take weeks, and especially given those in New York State or the surrounding areas, it's going to be tough because people who don't know Harvey Weinstein, don't know about the Me Too movement, are not familiar with him. Unless you get somebody from, I don't know, a rural area in the middle of the United States, it's going to be very tough. And that's ultimately what the first step of both the prosecution and the defense is going to be.
Yeah, Jesse. And then one other thing about what happened this morning and in the news media over the weekend with the press conferences or the pressers of the interviews the defense team gave, they suggested, I think Donna Rutina had suggested at some points in time, that she can cross-examine the victims better because she is female. Did that come up at all in the discussion this morning between the attorneys and the judge?
No, Linda, that specific part didn't come out. What I did see was kind of a flavor of how the defense is operating and who is going to take on what task. Now, first, the idea of her cross-examining these witnesses, you and I both know that's probably the right move. From an optics point of view, having a female attorney cross-examining these women would look a lot better than having a male attorney do that, especially in the eyes of the jury. However, what we saw today is a lot of the motions, a lot of the legal technical aspects, those motions were handled by Damon Chironis. Arthur Idala spoke up and gave about more of the overall arch of the case. He spoke out about the jury sequestration order. So you're seeing each of them take a different task. Now, Donna Rutina, she only came up when she was accused of speaking improperly to the media. But as we know, with every case that we cover, each attorney is given a specific task, whether they handle opening statements, whether they handle closing arguments, whether they ultimately cross-examine a certain witness, whether they're prepared to talk about experts. Each one of them has a specialty, and we're going to see that in this case.
And did the DA's office, who was the lead DA, and did it look like there was going to be a second chair, and who was that?
Right, so as we know, this is being headed up by Cy Vance's office. He hasn't been there. We saw Joan Illuzzi there, and she was really taking the head of all of this today. It'll be curious to see if she's going to be playing an active role throughout this case, but she was the only one that spoke up in this courtroom, and she had a lot of heavy lifting to do with some different motions that were being argued, different arguments that were being mentioned, and she took the lead role in all of this. Her name has been constantly in the media as being the face of the prosecution, and if she is ultimately able to secure a guilty verdict against Harvey Weinstein, she is the face that everyone's going to remember.
And indeed, Jesse, one of the things that it sounded like that there was a lot of bad blood between the defense and the prosecution. Not in every case, obviously they're adverse. But did you get an underlying current that something is going to happen in this courtroom between the attorneys?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell on day one, but speaking of day one, what you did see is that both sides is not going to let the other one have any leeway. Not surprising. There is a respect there. There is a professionalism there, but it should also be noted that there were accusations thrown left and right. So, as we said, when the prosecutor made that statement that, oh, she's talking bad in the media, the defense said, well, let me tell you something. We have a right to argue for our client because you just said in open court a few moments ago ago, you called our client a predator. And we all know that no matter what your feelings are on Harvey Weinstein, in a court of law, he is innocent until proven guilty. It's improper, perhaps, for the state to categorize him as a predator at this point. He's accused of it, but to call him that, maybe not right. So you see both these sides paying very close attention to what each of them are saying, not only in the court of law, but outside the court as well. They're monitoring both situations, and even the judge knows what's happening. He even said, Ms. Rutina, is this about you? Because he has an understanding about what's happening in the media. Both sides are being watched very carefully, and I will expect fireworks, a lot of objections, and possibly a lot of conflict as some of these more sensitive witnesses testify in this trial.
And that's why, Jesse Weber, we need you in that courtroom every single day, because I have a feeling that things are going to go, let me say, up in the skies. And we'll see whether Harvey Weinstein also can hold himself and not speak in the courtroom without going through his attorneys. I don't know. You think he can? Yes or no?
This is a man who's always had control over his life and over his career. It seems that he's also directing the defense. He went through 3 different defense teams, and now he has this third one that he's going forward with. As I said earlier, he did speak out in open court when the issue of him being confined to New York State. He wasn't too happy about that. It appears he's going to be vocal. I sat actually right in the row right behind him and was watching him during the course of this. He's keeping a very careful eye on what his defense attorneys do or don't do.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you very much. We will talk to you again probably tomorrow, and stay tuned later today. And you all have to stay tuned, because what Jesse is your eyes, your ears, and he's like the first chair in that courtroom for all the media. We'll be right back, Jesse. Thank you very much. We have to take a quick break now.